Tyler, I think I saw you.
Yes.
Okay. Can we go ahead? We, is Art just here? Okay. I will go and call the Judiciary Personnel meeting to order at 6:01. The first on the agenda, liquor and Class A fermented malt beverage license for Riley's Shop LLC, business as Riley's Sandwich Company at 4473 North Oakland Avenue, Shorewood, Wisconsin. It looks like we have the applicants on the call. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening.
So we have your application, which was in the packet. Does anybody on the call have any questions for the applicants? Trustee Menta?
This is for retail only purchase, is that correct?
That's correct. Just carry out only.
Carry out only, okay. I'm okay with that.
Trustee Ursink, did you have any? No? Okay. So am I. So thank you for your application. Good luck in your endeavors. And I think Tyler, this will move to full board at the next meeting. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so it will move to approval by the full village board at the next board meeting.
Aye.
Thank you.
Welcome to Shorewood.
Thank
Hey, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great rest of the meeting.
So just for a point of clarification, I think it's been requested that for all committees that we just have a formal vote so that when we bring it to full board that we state what the vote was. So if we could do that, that would be recommended.
Okay, would anybody like to approve the motion for the liquor license?
Are you making the motion?
Can I make the motion? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to approve the Class A liquor license for Riley's Sandwich Company at 4473 North Oakland Avenue.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it passes 3-0, and then we'll go to full board for approval.
There you go. Thanks.
Sounds great. I believe that's on the 16th. Thank you so much.
Yes, it is on the 16th. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Good
Thanks.
night. Or you're welcome to stay if you want to. Okay, turns out they didn't, but. So the next item on our agenda is consider recommendation and structure of the pedestrian bicycle committee and parks commission. So Tyler, do you want to kick off this conversation?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the last point where JP&L last met to discuss was early September, where we first talked about the concept of combining the two committees. I think the memo summarizes those thoughts, as well as I know all three of you as the JPL members were on that call as well, so I'm not going to get into that. But I do want to summarize the joint meeting that we had in October with the Ped and Bike and Parks Commission folks. I think overall it was fairly positive. You know, we tried our best to do some kind of SWOT analysis, which I included in the minutes of the draft minutes of that meeting. And the groups certainly recognize there's some pros and cons. I think a lot felt, you know, perhaps the pros, that there were significant pros, which once again were listed in the memo, but they understood that there was some, you know, similar efforts that they could help each other with, especially because a lot are focusing on education initiatives, similar to conservation or human relations commission, having more members would allow for more support of those initiatives. Another interesting thing is just based on the terms expiring for pet and bike, we're reaching a point where right now we have only 3 members. So they as of right now can't even have a quorum. And all the 3 members that are left, I think, are reaching their 6 years in the next year. So I think it's also recognizing that with pet and bike, it's getting guidance from JP&L and the board and how to proceed with that group, knowing they could potentially have complete turnover in the next year. So we're looking for some guidance on that. The one thing that came up at the joint or the joint meeting that we asked them to politely not focus their attention on, because I think it was more of a JP&L and village board discussion, was about their terms and what would happen if there was a new committee formed that they were appointed to. It was the question of, do their terms reset because they're joining a new committee, or do they continue their terms of service? So that was the question that I didn't want them to get into the details of that. I thought that was more of a political discussion that needs to occur here in the board. But otherwise, I provided the comments in the minutes that you can review. And then the Parks Commission did vote 6-0 to recommend the consolidation of the 2 committees. Pet and Bike didn't have a quorum, but I summarized their thoughts in the minutes as well.
Okay. Does any trustees have any initial comments? Trustee Ursink or Trustee Menta?
I think it's a good idea. Tyler's laid out a really good plan, and it sounded like it's a good idea moving forward.
President Rozak?
I fully support the combination of the 2 committees. I think it makes sense, and always have thought it made sense that we have a lot of overlap between the 2. And I think it'll be better for all the reasons that staff has outlined. As for term limits or term resetting of the term, is there a new ordinance? Has the ordinance changed for this committee?
Yeah, it's a completely new ordinance.
And I just missed what it said about, what does it say currently in the new draft about resetting of terms?
We don't speak, we basically use the Human Relations Commission language, which states that a third of the members will start with a 3-year term, a third of the members will start with a 2-year term, and then a third of the members would start with a 1-year term. So that would be under the assumption that all the members would be considered as new members. So if the board and the JPL committee did not agree with our approach, we would have to revise that portion of the ordinance.
I would recommend revising it. Just our terms for committees, and Trustee Carpenter, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we do appointments, because people move and we have to do midterm appointments, they're not staggered it's not as scientific as the ordinance lays out, because it's really hard to stagger when you're midterm appointing. So we come up against this all the time. And I just feel like if someone served their full 2 terms and they're up for ped and bike safety, you said, with the 3 members maybe next year, I wouldn't want them to have to serve, to serve another full 2 terms. I just don't know that would be fair. I know that this is going to be a popular committee. So that would be my recommendation, is to somehow either incorporate the current terms or not say anything, just say what the term limit is. And not necessarily that it has to be staggered. It's just the current people are on the committee. We fill any vacancies as they come up, and they get 2 terms.
So if we did that approach, which we could do, I just want the JPL committee to know, if we did that, we would take out that language. And then probably next year, we're looking at out of the 13, because it's proposed to be a 13-member committee. We're looking at probably about 8 of the 13 would be appointed in 1 year, because between the Parks Commission people that are off, the vacancies in Pet and Bike, and the 3 other members that are off, I think 8 of the 13 will be new members then.
And that would be in 5 months, about like
Yeah.
6 months. So it gives them enough time to get established and then, get into a routine, and then it would become, at least they have like a structure, and then you put the new members on. I don't know. It just, the terms never end up staggered. That's all. Over time, they just end up clumped together.
Trustee Menta?
Since this is going to be a committee focusing on public spaces, I think it might be advantageous to ask for a schools representative to sit on the committee, because a lot of our public and recreational spaces are actually school spaces. So I don't know, I don't know that we need a school board member, but maybe the person who's the head of the rec commission would be a good person to be on here.
I think that's a really good call. I think President Rozak, Tyler and I had discussed the staggering of terms. I didn't really think through, and I do think that you have a valid point. I mean, we spend a lot of time appointing in like mid-terms. So the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous is the number of people that would be up. Is there, I know you can't say this right now, but is there a way to break down? Because will 8 out of the 13 have met their term limits in April, May? Is that what you were saying, Tyler?
Yeah, it'll be at least 2 already in Parks Commission are done. It's just they continue to serve because they haven't been replaced yet. And then there could be potentially more. I know there's going to be more on the Parks Commission that reach their term, but I don't know if they're going to hit their limit. So it's up to them if they want to renew or not.
Maybe
So, and then we're going to have up, the full 7 on Pet and Bike that would need to be, replaced. And then it's just -1 because there's 7 on each. So that's a total of 14, but there's only 13 spots here. So, so you would subtract 1 there in the end. So I think it's going to be about 8.
Is the clerk on the line by any chance?
She is not.
Okay, she has that spreadsheet. That would be definitive. I do have one.
Sorry, President Rozak, Trustee Ursink was next, and then you.
Tyler, can you tell us how the conversation went internally with the group and what they wanted to do, what their recommendations were? Because I feel like 8 people leaving a board that is kind of a newer group forming, but I also feel like this group is also starting to kind of, get to a sort of like a, they're starting to achieve things. They're starting to get to a certain good spot. And, I think it'd be hard to lose more than half the board at one period. So what was the thoughts on the board?
Well, the people that would be expiring, at least the ones that were on the call, wanted to continue to serve. I think some of them are excited because, like at least for some of the Pet and Bike folks, for instance, with their terms expiring, I think 1 or 2 of them were thinking about Parks Commission anyways. So, for them, they thought when their term might expire, there could be an option for them. But now with the joint group, I think that's what excites some, is they get to, they would still get to work on Pet and Bike issues, but also park issues. But these are passionate residents, and we have a lot of passionate residents for parks and Pet and Bike, and I certainly understand that sentiment. But President Rozak, I also understand what she's saying too. That we have a lot of people in mind that could potentially serve. I think the other thing to note that they mentioned in the conversation was, they are worried about the turnover, especially Pet and Bike is worried. Because if they're not replaced, I think they're worried that a lot of the initiatives they've been working on will lose a lot of momentum, because there would be no one that was on that committee from a year or 2 ago that would be able to have that historical context to provide to the committee. So I think they're worried that a lot, although the perfect example was for the seniors riding the bikes on the sidewalk. That's been an issue they've been working on really consistently. And they feel if there's a brand new 6, 7 that are kind of representing that area, you know, none of them may have that as a topic of interest. And that's a topic that a lot of seniors are really passionate about. Elizabeth, if you ever talk with Elizabeth, can tell you a lot more about that. So I think that was a really large concern of the ped and bike folks. So just a few points.
President Rozak.
I have 2 things. I totally understand that, and that's reasonable, but I believe that's why we have staff liaison. I think that, Tyler, are you the staff liaison for this?
I would be for this group, yeah.
So knowing how involved you've been, and just as you're updating us, I think that's reasonable that you would update any new members of the ped and bike safety that transition. If the board, majority of the board wanted to do some sort of staggered terms, I would recommend not filling all of them then at one time and waiting a year and filling the rest of them. So making it a smaller and then adding on. I feel like there's a lot of people, this is gonna be a very popular committee, and to go against our own term policy, it's gonna be very tricky. We could reset it. We could say, since we're disbanding the 2 committees, everybody's off, and we create a new committee just like we did HRC. I'd be more comfortable with that. And then I do have a second point once we're off of the term limits. I just wanted to talk about the appointment process for this committee.
Just 1 second, Trustee Backhorst. If you are not speaking, it looks like there's a couple people that are not on mute. Tyler, are you able to mute everyone?
I actually can. So for
Thank
some of the
you.
residents, I will go ahead and mute them.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Backhorst, go ahead.
Thank you. So I was at this October meeting, and like Tyler had mentioned, the majority of the people there, you know, had questions that were more board related questions, but overall seemed, you know, genuinely enthusiastic to do this. So I guess one of the things I would ask from Tyler tonight is what you need as far as like the term limits and the school district and all those kind of requirements. I guess I love the idea of always offering to the school district a spot on any committee or commission, but we can't, as we all know, mandate the school district. They're an independent body, and the open spaces at the school district are their property, not the villages. So we really have no say in what they do with those anyway. We collaborate on a lot of things, and we do pay for things, but they're not required to get our approval, nor can we mandate that they serve on any commission or committee. So I guess I would say, number one, I would ask if anyone on this call who mentioned, I think Trustee Amento, or maybe it was Trustee Carpenter, of having a school board presence on this, if you've actually spoken with the school district and they've said, yes, that sounds like a great idea, or that's an idea from us. But regardless of all of this, I just don't know how much direction, you know, what staff would need. We do tend at this time to get kind of into the weeds of operations here and like, you know, micromanaging and stuff like that. And but I will say one third thing regarding the term limits staggering. I'm the longest standing board member on here. I also got the Conservation Committee, along with 3 others back in 2007, reinstated after being defunct since the 80s. And it was a 13-member board. We had 1 student representative, and we had staggered term limits for the rest. There were 1, 2, and 3-year terms. There's always a way to do it. People leave midterm. The new person that gets appointed, you know, can either be appointed, you know, for the duration of their term or a new one. The fact that we have term limits, that's a newer thing since President Rozak joined the board as a trustee in 2016. That wasn't always the case. So there's a lot of different options, but I would say, to me, what makes the most sense is what makes most sense. Tyler's the one orchestrating this, and we let staff deal with the smaller things, and we give them the overall general direction on this. This is what one of the things this board does way too much is get into the weeds on policy, and that's not our job. Ours is board policy, procedure, and budget, and not micromanaging the daily ins and outs of the village staff. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Tyler.
Can I answer those questions? Well, first of all, if you look in the ordinance under ex officio, I have the school board specifically the rec department as an ex officio member, as well as ESAB, county parks.
The president.
There might be one other, but those are groups that are directly impacted by discussions related to parks and open spaces. So I think what we do, if the ordinance passes, is we say, hey, if you want to have an ex officio member attend these meetings, great. And if not, you always have an open invitation. And I think how it's drafted, I think will allow that inclusive process to the other community groups. So I think we're covered there. And then in relation to the question of direction, I'm looking for direction to take this ordinance proposal to the next full board meeting. And then the one question I am specifically looking for direction, unless there's any other topics the board or the JP&L committee feels is the terms. How it's drafted right now, as I mentioned, is it's treated as it's a new committee. So right now it's seeing that it's the staggered approach, that we would we would have 1/3 have 3-year term, 1/3 have a 2-year term, and 1/3 have a 1-year term, and then continue, so that at least we always have a third that would be appointed at the at the same time, and try to keep that. So what I would need to know from the JP&L committee is if you want to revise that approach, or if that's the approach that you want to bring to the full board.
I'm sorry, revise what approach?
So the question would be, would you want the members to be like, 4 members, try to divide it evenly amongst the members as far as what their term starts? Or is there a different approach you would like to take? So basically you could say, okay, whatever your term is right now on the Parks Commission, that's where it stays.
Well, we don't have a list of interested people because this is a new committee. So we don't have a list of people who are interested in this particular committee, right?
Correct.
We haven't sent out a solicitation for people to be interested in it.
That's correct.
So I would just start from the beginning, and I don't know. I would have to look at a little more detail. I mean, if we have someone who's been on for 10 years, then no, I would not give them another 4 years on this. But again, we don't have a list. So, maybe, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on it. I don't have an opinion on it
We have 2
tonight.
Parks
Sorry.
Commission members.
Did you ask this did you ask this question in the report specifically?
No, but I know what the
No.
terms
Okay.
are of
Well,
all
I
the
can't make a
boards.
decision. I can't make a decision because, it's not, you are asking a pretty substantive question. You didn't ask it in the report, and you're asking us on the spot to make a decision. And I'm not going to do that. So I don't have an answer for you.
Well, I mentioned in the memo the question about the terms, but I did not provide the report, the spreadsheet that President Rozak is referring to. But the term question wasn't, that was a question that was included in the memo.
President Rozak.
My input on the terms is, again, if you're going to start over, I would disband the committee and use the 2 existing applications for the 2 committees, interested parties, and just use that pool of applicants. And again, you can always recruit outside the pool of applicants if they put in an application. So, so I would either start new, or I would just continue the terms that they currently have. That would be my recommendation based on Trustee Carpenter and I's 3 years together doing appointments. The second thing I just wanted to get in before I know this agenda item is going to close out is like the HRC is the only committee that is appointed by the village board without recommendation from the village president. So it was written, and I think that was a mistake originally, but it seems that we're going down that path more and more. This one is mirroring that ordinance. I would suggest we utilize the memo from our attorney back when we had him write it and spent a ton of money writing this memo about appointment process. And it's really the village president who has full discretion over whether or not to refer any appointment to JP&L. JP&L, the memo had said and spelled out after we paid hundreds of dollars for the attorney to write it. It basically says that JP&L is there to help the village president, the chief elected official of the village, because it's overwhelming. It's an overwhelming process. And so sometimes if there's so many appointments, the village president will defer to JP&L, some of the ones that are not as statutorily required. But that is a discretionary move. At least that's what the village attorney ruled. And so this ordinance takes that discretionary, it takes the discretion away. And I just wanted to note that, because if that's where we're headed, I would highly recommend against it. I don't know any other municipality that has done that in the state of Wisconsin. So I would rephrase it and just like every other committee, the village president makes the appointment with potential deferment to JP&L. And then confirmation by the village board, of course.
So Tyler, for you to be able to move forward to full board, what you need from us right now is just to clarify, I think the big things are the terms and the term limits. Is that what is, because it seems like there is some consensus on well, I guess I'll go back to the committee members. It seems like there is consensus about consolidating the two committees. The sort of question that we have is the term limits. Would you both say that's an accurate statement?
And the appointing authority. I would.
Yeah, I'm okay with combining them, but until I have more data, I can't say. And we're also discussing the appointment process. We're discussing it next item, so maybe we can just combine it into that conversation.
Well, I think if we can get through the open spaces committee consolidation and take that particular item and then the process in the next item, I think that would provide direction for Tyler. Arthur, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have something that you were going to say?
No.
Do you have any thoughts about the term limits and the arrangements of terms?
I like Tyler's idea about staggering the current members in the new committee.
And then
Sorry.
just a recommendation, based on comments that I heard from President Rozek and Trustee Menta, perhaps what you could include in the motion, which would help give the guidance to staff that we need, is, if you were to reset it as a new committee, maybe you were to say, that, members that serve on the Parks Commission and Pet and Bite Safety that have served X amount of years or under X amount of years would be able to still be on the committee. But if the concern is if anyone over 6 years,
It's 8, the term, isn't it?
or whatever the years would be, that's, they've already served a number of years, that at least giving me that number would give the guidance that we would need to know who would be able to serve on this committee and who wouldn't.
What is that sort of, trying to think what that magical number is, is it 6 years? 6 years is 2 terms, which is what our policy is, correct, right?
That's correct.
So maybe that is it. Anyone who's served more than 6 years without the data in front of us, to me, that seems like a sort of logical process.
Mhm.
Do you need a motion, Tyler?
I would like a motion, yes, please.
Okay. Amenta or Sink, anyone there? Do you guys want to make a motion?
We can move to approve. I'd move to approve combining the two committees. I don't know what else we need on top of that, though. So that's what I'd move, but I don't know if, I don't know beyond that.
I'll second that motion.
So if we just say that we're moving to combine the two committees and move that to full board, Tyler, could you come back with maybe some clarifying data for the full board discussion of
Spreadsheet.
how many people have, where, like how many people have served for 6 years, and because I think that might help the term limit conversation move forward a little.
Sure, but as I conveyed earlier, I can tell you that it's 2 Parks Commission members and 3 Pet and Bike members, but I'd be happy to still include that spreadsheet in. And then do you want to make that determination still at JPL, or do you want that just to be brought to full board and have that discussion at the full board?
I would say full board is probably more appropriate.
That's fine. I think that's fine. Okay, so all in favor of Trustee Ursing's motion? Aye.
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 Okay, passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you.
And then Tyler, I was going to ask you, hold on, sorry, I have to jump
Can I
back.
Clarification question, Trustee Carpenter, Chair Carpenter. I know staff probably has the same question. That moved it to the full board, but was that approval of the ordinance in front of you? The draft ordinance in front of you? I just want to make sure that motion is clear when it gets to full board so we can put it in the minutes. I don't think it did. I think that we're going to decide at full board about the ordinance, but
Yeah, I interpret that they're moving to recommend to bring it to the full board
okay.
as presented.
As presented is the draft language that's in front of us.
Yes, correct.
I didn't hear that, but
Well, I haven't heard any changes yet, and there was no amendments included in the motion.
can I ask who made the motion? Was it Trustee Menta?
Nope.
Okay, was it Trustee Ursink? Was it just to combine the committees and then talk about the language with no recommendation on the ordinance language until you get to full board? Is that what the motion was?
That's correct.
That's a little different than what I think Tyler's interpretation was. Okay, thank you.
So Tyler, just so we can make sure that we get through everything, I just wanted to confirm, is the 4th item on our agenda, the 2021 wellness program, is that time sensitive? Do you need an answer on that tonight?
I need it would be really preferred, just because HR manual, we like to adopt the first meeting in December. So to have the wellness program language ready, I would need some kind of direction tonight from JP&L.
Are we okay with, is staff okay with the board starting late, the board meeting? Because I think this committee will go long.
So I had spoken with Rebecca. She really would, I mean, my goal is to give us as much time for the community and business relations conversation. So that's why I was just trying to understand that from Tyler and see if the board would, at the pleasure of the committee, if we could move the order of the items in the committee agenda, if that was okay with everyone. So
Can do that? Wait, I don't know if we can do that between committees. Am I correct?
No, just the wellness scorecard. That's the JP&L committee. That's the 4th item on the agenda. Move that to the 3rd item, and then move the HRC conversation to the 4th item. Just flip flop those 2 items.
That can be done.
Just so we can be sure that that's done and out of the way, since it's time sensitive.
If for any reason the HRC conversation doesn't happen next full board, we won't have the answer to my question, just so you know, just to be clear, on the appointment authority for this ordinance that just went forward.
Trustee Ursink and Trustee Amenta, are you okay with changing the order of the agenda?
So we still plan on getting to business and community relations at 7 p.m. I'm hoping for.
Yes, that was my intention, was if we could switch those, then we guarantee what's time sensitive is done tonight, and that we can get to community and business relations. So Tyler, do you want to go ahead and start with the wellness scorecard, and then can go to any questions?
Yeah, I'll keep this really brief. I included the summary of the wellness program. Knowing that the board expressed some interest in changing the program, I just want to give you the opportunity to discuss that. And then any guidance that you provide me when I do the proposed HR manual changes, I can incorporate the guidance that you provide me tonight in those recommended changes.
So is the interim COVID 12% included in it next year or no?
As of right now, no. So that's up to the board if you want to include it for another year or not.
No, I personally don't. So
Okay.
this is just exactly the same as last year then, minus, or this current year.
Yeah, well, right now you're seeing the summary benefit for this year. So you see intermediate, but right now in the HR language, I do not have intermediate for next year.
Right.
Because when we presented it to the board and employees, it was communicated as only a 1 year thing due to.
Well, doctors' offices are open, dentists are open, you know.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Trustee Ursing, did you have any comments?
No, so what we're saying is, Trustee Menta, you said you're okay with continuing this program another year?
No.
Or what?
Okay with what's presented in the packet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay, I would say I am as well. I helped with the scorecard, so last year, or 2 years ago now. I do think it's a good addition, but I just want to clarify though, Tyler, so the removal, there will not be the 12% option. It is either the 10 or the 15% for the share. Is that correct?
That's what it is right now, unless the JP&L or the village board decides you would like it to look differently.
Okay. President Rozak?
I think during budget, the conversation that we were supposed to have tonight, and I don't see it in front of us, but wasn't this intermediate? I mean, that we needed to decide, but that's already been proposed for this year. It was more of whether we were going to go to the, and I know Trustee Stokebrand would understand this, but whether we were going to go to the 12 and 15% rather than the 10 and 15% that exists. That was the conversation, that why we brought it to JP&L. One of the reasons is in our budget discussion that came up, and we did not adopt it because Tyler had mentioned we didn't do any changes because they wouldn't have gotten paid the right amount or something like that. And so that saves us, if you run the numbers, it would save us significant money in the budget according to the past formulas that we used. I don't see that in front of us tonight, so we'll have to come back to that at a different date.
Tyler, can you correct me? I thought that after running those numbers, that from the budget conversation, that it was not a significant savings, or am I?
Yeah, Mark said it's just over $10,000 if you were to go to 12, 15%.
It was like 60 when we ran the numbers last year, but if you didn't include the two people that dropped off the insurance plan, I mean, just because it was over 50% participation.
Oh, sorry, I'm answering the question. If we were to go to 12 and 15%, what would the financial savings be? Because that was the question that was asked during the budget wrap up. And Mark summarized that it would be just over $10,000 because some of that goes to the utility.
Oh, I see. So out of that 60,000 that was in the original memo.
Yeah, so that's the question tonight, is for the premium contributions, instead of 10, 15%, if you want to change that at all. I have left it the same just because, I don't know what direction the board would like to go on that. So I'm just posing that question.
In budget, originally it was 12% before we changed it. So it was 12%, and then we wanted to do the wellness program. So everybody contributed 12% to their health insurance premiums. When we adopted wellness, Tyler put together a memo, and it showed if less than 50% achieve their scorecard, we would actually save money by going to this 12. You can have 12% if you do wellness. You go down to 10%. And at that time I had said, why don't we just say, if you do wellness, you get 12%. And if you don't do wellness, you get 15% towards your premium. So there's, but anyhow, that was a $60,000 savings. I guess some of it's divvied out to utility. Now Mark's saying 50,000 of that savings. So I don't understand that without seeing more numbers, but I do think it's worth discussion of going to the original premium. And if you don't do wellness, then your premium goes up. That's all.
Okay. So, I mean, if you don't do wellness, is that, I mean, am I reading that incorrectly? But if you don't do the wellness scorecard,
It's not
you
even-
are paying, isn't that not a participant? It's 15%. Full
Right now you're paying,
participant.
yeah, if you don't do wellness, you're paying 15. If you do wellness, you're paying 10. That's just the co-pay plan. We have a high deductible plan, but that it's what changes if you're on the co-pay or the high deductible plan is your HSA contributions from the village.
It used to be 12%. So when we had the
Right.
original discussion, it was, if you don't do wellness, you'll get 15%. If you do wellness, you could either stay at 12. But what we did that first year was we lowered it to 10. We lowered the employee premium to 10. So what I'm saying is, in budget discussions, we talked about if we hired it, because now that more than 60% or 50% of the participants are achieving their scorecard, we're actually paying in more. And I thought it was 60,000, but as Mark revised the numbers that I don't know where those are, but it's 10. So it's a savings for the budget is what it is. And it's not anything different than before the wellness program, because 12% was the original premium contribution.
Trustee Carpenter?
Yep, Trustee Stokbrand, I'm gonna, Trustee Ursink, and then you're next.
Tyler, how many employees actually fulfilled their full were full participants and had 10%? We're at the 10% mark.
It was 75% this past year.
That's great.
You start paying in.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think this is a fantastic option for our employees, and I fully support promoting health and wellness, and I think this is a great opportunity for our village and its employees, and really helps get people to come to our district. So
In our village,
Trustee Stokbrand?
Yeah, so in the budget discussion, one of the things we talked about was if we had to have a small tax increase, could we sort of share the pain as it was? And so there was discussion of a user fee, there was a discussion of increasing property taxes and possibly asking a little more of employees. And that's where the health insurance piece came up. And so my suggestion was, could we move the 10 to 12 and move the intermediate to 13 and keep the 15 where it was for the wellness? That's where I was looking to save some money for the budget for future years. I was told by Tyler it wouldn't work this year. It would be better to start for next year. So that's why I was proposing that. It would help with, I think, sharing the budget costs. So you'd move the 10 to 12, the 12 to 13 if you needed it, and the 15 would stay the same for people enrolled in the wellness plan. So the 12% would stay the same as it was before we started wellness. So that's what my thinking was. Thank you.
I fully support that.
Thank you. Tyler, do you know what the 2% difference in dollars is?
Yeah, that's the about the $10,000 number that I referenced earlier.
Sorry, no, the 2% per employee. So what is their increase in their premium?
Oh, on a per month basis?
Mm-hmm.
I can look that up real quickly.
Because my guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but that it's pretty insignificant. And I think we all in that budget conversation all had kind of this aha moment of that we didn't want to change the employee contributions in the middle of the year. I think we all definitely had some consensus that did not feel equitable. But going into, because this would be for 2021 and part of 2022, if that remember.
That's correct. Yeah, and the answer to that, if you're under the family plan, most of our employees are on the family plan, would be about $50 a month difference. So they would be paying about $600 more into the health insurance.
Which they were before wellness.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I think that that's something that I would be in support of is, like you were saying, Tyler, removing the intermediate and doing the 12 and 15. Trustee Backhorst, did you have something you wanted to say?
I did, and I just wanted to clear up that I think that there were at least 3 of us during that meeting that were not in support of increasing premiums, regardless of if it happened in the beginning of the year, mid-year, or what. And the rhetoric that I hear thrown around about public employees and everyone fair share, I'm kind of tired of that. I heard that in 2010 a lot. These guys are paying their fair share. This is not the private sector. They forgo a lot of things. We want to encourage wellness, and there are a variety of reasons. So I know we had this at the full budget, and I know now it's coming back to this group. So I'm glad that I've been listening to this call, but I'm going to be clear on this, that again, I do not support in any way an attack on the public employees. And the fact that we have less than a 1%, lower than the rate of inflation tax levy for our village, and yet we're going to be asking the public employees to take a big hit, $500, $600 a year for a family plan. That's, to me, what are we gaining from that? What are we saving the average taxpayer per year by doing something like that? That's a question we need to ask ourselves as well. So it sounds like we're transferring what we pay for property taxes onto the public employees, and a lot of them are community members as well. And I'm wondering where the community consented call for doing something like this is as well. Because if it's a policy decision that we're making, and we are making a pretty bold statement by saying, hey guys, we want you to pay for us.
Okay. Tyler.
Sure. As I mentioned during the budget wrap up, I'm going to be fully supportive, whatever the board does. I feel like it's my responsibility as the HR manager to just let you know some of the thoughts shared from some of our employees. One thought is, right now our union pays 12% and they're not doing anything. So I think one thing we will run into is, we're going to have some non-union employees look at the fact that, some employees are not doing anything and paying 12%, and they have to do a bunch of wellness activities and still pay the same contribution as them. So I just want you to know that's going to be one point that's going to be relayed to me. I think another kind of counter proposal to this, as maybe a middle ground that I've heard that I just want to propose as an option if you want to go there or not, is 11%, which that would be some still budget savings, but it's acknowledging that employees are, non-union employees are doing a little bit more for the wellness, and that would be still seen as an incentive. I think if we were to go to 12%, I think a lot of employees would communicate with me that they would just not want wellness at all. That it would be seen more as a consequence rather than an incentive or a proactive program. So please know I'm going to be supportive of whatever direction you'd like to go. I just want to make sure that some of those thoughts that would be shared.
Trustee Menta.
And not that we're ever asked for input on labor negotiations, but I would say that the union employees should be at 15%, just like the regular employees who are not doing wellness. And personally, I feel you have to offer an incentive. If you don't offer an incentive, if we think wellness is going to benefit us at long-term in our healthcare expenditures, and it's just a good thing for people in general, if you don't offer an incentive to do it, people are not going to do it. So I'm fine with 10%, but I also think the police union should go to 15%.
Okay.
Trustee Ursink.
Just kind of trying to be creative. What if we took out the middle option of 12% and left it at 10 and 15%? So either people complete the whole program, or they don't.
I'm for sure recommending that, intermediate probably will, because that was only seen as a 1-year thing with COVID. So I think that's probably gone. So it's just a question of, for you as a JPL committee, what do you want the wellness completion level to be at?
President Rozak.
I have one clarifying question. Ex officio members, do they vote Can they vote? And the reason I ask that is village manager and the village president are CO members to all committees by ordinance.
I think the definition of ex officio is a non-voting member.
Okay.
So I think the answer to that is no.
Okay, I think that they can, but thank you for clarifying. But the incentive is going from 12%, and if you don't do wellness, your premium is 15%. So for me, that would be enough incentive to, it's a 3% lowering of your premium, which I think is significant. So that would be an incentive for me. And since you shared what the union and the employees have said, I'd like to share what the residents have told us, or at least that I've heard, and that is, as an elected official, that the taxes are too high in Shorewood, and that they would like us to really concentrate on bringing that down. And we did a great job in budget this year. I commend everyone on the board for really taking a proactive look at that during this pandemic, when people are suffering. So I commend us. This is just one of the things that we talked about to achieve that goal. Even further for the following years, that as we know expenses are going to go up. So we have to start somewhere. And this was one of the suggestions.
Trustee Backhorst, and then I think we should move on to our last topic.
Thank you. So I agree with Trustee Ursink, that 10%, 15, if you don't do wellness, there's a reason for this, you guys. I hope you understand that, you know, by participating in wellness activities, you're hoping that the employees will be healthier, they'll be more productive, the insurance premiums, everything else will go down overall. It's an incentive for us. It's a long game approach versus a short game approach. And by moving from 10 to 12, that's up 2%. That's not a savings. That's an increase in insurance. And I don't know which constituents that you're talking about, President Rosick, but this is the place where the recall of both Alberta Darling started in after the Act 10, which was an assault on public employees. So if we're going to make policy decisions that tell our public employees, again, that we're going to take a tax break on your back, because that's what we're doing. So just understand that, the rest of the board members as well, that this isn't going to go over lightly. No one's going to be fooled by this. This is us. Yes, sure, people want to pay less in taxes. People want to pay less in fees. But we're talking about making employees pay, what, $50 extra a month, more or less? That's more expensive than it will be for our parking program. That's a lot more than it will be for us if we actually funded this at the same rate that we have been for paying per month. We're talking about probably the difference in $30 a year per average household per year versus telling these public employees $50 a month. So you're taking from a small pool of people, making them pay a lot because, and during, as President Rosick mentioned, during a pandemic, during difficult times, this board during difficult times is calling upon our public employees to pick up the tab. I don't buy it. I don't think that's good policy at all. I think it's a slap in the face. And I think as a JP&L committee, and we have an HR person here, Tyler, you are sending the wrong message to our public employees. That's not a message of value. That's a message of a bait and switch. And I don't appreciate it. And I haven't heard a good argument for it yet, other than you want to save yourself some money.
Trustee Mento.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that when the pandemic happened in March, and we had people who we continued to pay every village employee full pay, whether they were working, not working, whether they were home, whether they were home because their spouses had to work, whatever. And I really, I don't agree that if any consideration of change in health insurance is disrespecting employees or somehow implying that we don't value employees, because there are many other municipalities who furloughed, who let people go. There are a hell of a lot of people in the private sector who are no longer working. So I really hope that employees remember that not a single one of them lost a single dollar, whether they were doing their job or not. So I really hope that they remember the board made that commitment to employees and values employees.
Okay, so Tyler, for you to move this to full board, you need a motion and some direction. So, sorry, I'm just going back.
I would just need a motion where you want the copay wellness participation to be set at.
Why do you need a motion? I mean, if we're not making any change, then we're not recommending any change. I don't know why you need a motion.
Oh, I haven't heard yet if well, because I've heard multiple opinions, so I don't know where the JP&L committee is at.
I'm fine with it currently exactly the way it is. I believe that's what Trustee Ursink also said, correct?
Did you make a motion? Just make a motion.
We don't need to make a motion.
Well, you do, because the village board, you're going to recommend something to the village board, and my opinion is different than yours when we get to the board. So it'd be good to know JP&L what the vote was on the same.
So if there is not a motion, it sounds like Trustee Ursink and Trustee Menta both would like to leave the percentages at 10 and 15. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think I'd like to put the percentages at 12 and 15. So there's a, because I'm just trying to find a motion. I don't see if there's.
It said the motion is I move to approve the modifications to the wellness program to create an intermediate level for 2020. Right? Is that it?
No, that you're looking at an old, that's the attached, that's an attached document.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, what I can do, I mean, based on the direction I've heard,
Minutes. So
yeah, it's always requested that we reflect the vote in the minutes. So it would be great to get some kind of motion.
a memo, when we get memos, we pay for these, but that committee members, because we don't have minutes, we get a vote if it's slated for action. Otherwise, it goes to the full board and we record that vote in the minutes. And that's how we get around having to take minutes at committees. So I'm just sharing that with you because it's parliamentary procedure and it's how our ordinance is written, and we really need a vote. So someone can make a motion.
Okay, well, I move to keep the wellness program at 10 and 15%.
Trustee Menta, do you want to second that or? Trustee, I mean, if I'm not going to support it, do I need to second it or no? So we can vote?
It fails.
Right.
So then you can make a new motion.
I will move to adjust the premium share to 12 and 15% for the wellness program.
So you move it to full board without a vote, now that they both failed.
Mhm.
Okay, so no recommendation to the full board.
So there's no recommendation. So just know, I'll have the HR manual modifications. It's still going to be in there, so the full board will be able to discuss, but I'll include in the minutes that there was no
recommendation. Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay. So the other item on the agenda was the discussion for consider using Human Relations Commission to test the vacancy appointment process.
Just since it's 7 o'clock, do you want to table this discussion?
If we table it, can I just say, and I'd be fine with that, but then Tyler, can you bring that attorney memo straight to the board on the appointment process and because it's changing. And we were going to discuss it during this agenda item for the last one. So if you could just bring that attorney memo to the full board so we have it available in our packet.
Well, my point of clarification would be for just, would we want to bring this back to JP&L or do you just want it to go to full board?
Not this topic. I was talking about the first agenda item that we were going to talk about now. So we didn't cover it in the first agenda item because we were going to cover it in the.
You mean for the committees?
Yes, for the.
Yes, yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
Yes.
Then that way we'll just discuss it.
Yep, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
So if we table this, you will bring it to full board? Is that what you were saying you'll bring it back to JPNL?
Well, as of right now, I'd bring it back to JPNL, but if, if there's a different recommendation, I would welcome that.
What went to full board, I apologize, Trustee Carpenter, was the village attorney memo for the first item on our agenda tonight, on your agenda. I had brought up that it's a change to the appointment process and it goes against the village attorney's memo. And I just wanted to, it's a change from that. And so that discretion is lost by the next village president. And we're moving away from that. So we were going to discuss it during this agenda item to get clarification for that agenda item. But if we're not doing this agenda item, then we'll talk about it at full board.
Okay. So we need a motion to dismiss the JPNL committee.
I move to dismiss the JPNL committee.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we have the same link for community and business relations? Yeah, okay.
Which I am the chair of. Welcome to my first community and business relations meeting. And it's so I think, after a lot of conversation, I've, even though I am not a part of the bid anymore, I think there was some miscommunication that people assume that I am part of the bid and I'm not part of the bid anymore. I am just the trustee liaison with the bid. But excuse me?
You have a vote, don't you, on the bid board?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, President Rozak.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd like to do is table my portion of this and let Steph Salvia discuss the bid operating plan. I will not be necessarily voting on it tonight, but I did speak with the attorney and he revised that email that he sent out saying that I do in fact have a vote, so I can vote on this. So
what? So if you do recuse yourself, you'll have to pass the chair just to another member of your committee while presiding over Steph's item.
Nice slurp.
Trustee Bach.
I'm sorry, thank you. So if you are not, so your appointment or your elected office supersedes in any kind of appointed office. So your elected office is trustee, and the fact that you're a liaison to the bid board is secondary. Your fiduciary responsibilities lie within your elected position. So if you are to recuse yourself from any vote, it would be a bid board vote if there's a conflict of interest versus a village board. And trustee, and I know you said this incorrectly probably in the past, President Rozak, but this is your elected office. This is what the population elected you to. So anyway, I'm glad to hear that you're able to vote.
Can I have we gotten an updated email from Nathan? Because the latest email I had from Nathan was that you did need to recuse yourself.
But that was under the assumption that I was on the bid board.
But
so is there an updated memo from Nathan?
We talked about it. He actually just said that he will update everybody for the next November 16th meeting. So
I mean, my feeling is that it was not because of being on the bid board, but because you are listed as a director of the nonprofit. So you have an interest, it's not a financial interest, but as an officer of the nonprofit, you fall under the same conflict of interest legislation, and that you do have a conflict of interest and you do need to recuse yourself.
Sure, and just to clarify that I was when we put together our nonprofit, I think it was about 6 months ago. Steph Salvia needed to put a group together to put on the official documents. At the time, I was the bid president, so she used my name as the president of this nonprofit. Within that time, it takes several months to get a nonprofit organized, and within that time, I stepped off of the bid board, and I plan on stepping off of the nonprofit board. So I see your hand up, President Rozak. You can put it down. I will call on you when I'm done
you
talking.
can recuse yourself, and then I can speak just like Trustee Amenta just spoke. I'm an ex officio member. So,
okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
The reason that
I wasn't done talking though.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So my plan is to recuse myself of the vote tonight, because I do have a conflict of interest because I am listed on the nonprofit. But in between now and no, Allison, can you please stop making faces and comments? Just please let me talk. All right? Have some respect.
You have
Seriously.
to recuse yourself from the discussion, not just the vote.
I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion.
It's
Okay,
the
dude. So
chairship over. You're recusing yourself from this item.
okay, so I will recuse myself from this item and nominate Trustee Carpenter to take over from this conversation.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Ising. So I think the next logical step to kick off this conversation is Steph, if you can start the dialogue and then we can kind of go from there.
Okay, did you want me just to kind of walk through the operating plan, or do you want to just jump right on into the nonprofit?
I think for time's sake, since we don't have a lot of it, let's start there. Start with a nonprofit, and then if we can go from there.
Okay, so as you all know, I started with the bid the end of February, and there had already been discussions before I came along about the benefits of starting a nonprofit. Just moving forward, a lot of business districts in the greater Milwaukee area have a nonprofit arm with which to fundraise, accept donations, apply for grants, and that sort of thing. A lot of corporations won't even acknowledge kind of a grant application unless you're a 501c3. So the timing's been a little weird, which is why I think there's a little bit of buzz about this nonprofit. And so I just got the paperwork last week. I needed 5 people to file for the nonprofit. I went to my bid board to ask them for suggestions. Also, oftentimes with nonprofits that work with bids, there are overlapping members. So just did my best with the recommendations from my bid board. As you know, people aren't like clamoring to join boards right now or ever. So it was kind of like an initial, let's get this sucker set and going. And that's as far as I've gotten with it. The nonprofit was drawn up by Reinhardt Law, who specializes in nonprofit bid work, and our legal counsel for the city of Milwaukee too. And then, other than that, it's up to our bid board to make some decisions going forward on how we want to use the nonprofit, how to fund the nonprofit if we are, or if it's just kind of on the side to use. But again, all decisions that need to be made with the bid board. I'm not just going to start moving money around or anything like that without the input from my bid board. That's it in a nutshell. So I don't know how you want
to. Trustee Menta, do you have any questions as the other community business relations member?
I guess I'm not sure when, my feeling about the assessment and the bid, they basically assess themselves, and I don't have very strong feelings about how they decide to spend their money. But I do want to be sure that the bid membership was aware of this, and not just the bid board, but the bid membership, that they're aware of this, that they're aware of the possibility. I was under the impression that the plan was to move operations completely under this nonprofit, which is a pretty, is a pretty radical change. It has a lot of implications in terms of transparency. There's a lot of differences between the nonprofit and what's described in the Articles of Incorporation and how a publicly funded organization would work. So I guess if the bid members understand this and feel that this is the right thing to do and the direction they want to go in, you know, that would be important to me to know that that's, that has happened. And from what I'm not really sure. I mean, I know it was discussed at one bid board meeting, I believe in April. Has it been talked about at other bid board meetings, and have the bid membership generally been involved and know what and understand what this proposal is?
So yeah, I'll answer some of those questions and concerns. So, you know, I didn't do like any
Guys, I'm Stephanie Sherman, the bid board.
What?
What was that,
That
Steph?
our board meeting.
I'm not, it looks like everyone is muted. So Steph, go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, we, you know, along the way, we have done the bid board has had some discussion along the way as this, it's kind of been slow going. I have focused a little more on other things that were directly impacting the bid as we were going along here. But I did not do extra outreach to our full bid list, just because all of the meeting minutes are published and available. I'm happy to do so, though. I know that one of our board members today suggested I reach out to the entire bid list also to fill a couple more seats that are available on that board, and I'm happy to do so. Oh, and to address the operations of the bid, you know, other districts have done that where they roll all of the operations into the nonprofit. That's just an example of what other bids have done. I'm not saying that I didn't make any decisions about that. All of these things would need to be discussed with the bid moving forward and the full bid list to get any other additional input.
President Rosick, I'm going to get to 1 second. I just have 2 questions. I know you said that there were, I tried to do a little research about other bids that have nonprofits, but I couldn't quite find that out. You know, are there similar communities of our size that have nonprofit arms of their bids?
No corporations.
Yeah, there are several. Brady Street has one. We use it just for specific items. Ours is a foundation for arts and education. Harbor District has one. I think most of their funds are actually associated with their nonprofit. But I think if Stephanie Sherman would have to talk to that. I don't remember if their bid director might be paid out of the district, but it's totally different for everybody in how they use it. And again, it's the bid that would decide if or when or how, if we wanted to fund it or how we wanted to use it. And then, you know, it's once a year, and there'd be a contract between the nonprofit and the bid. And every year we can, you know, look and see what's working, what's not. It would be in the operating plan, how we would operate. And, you know, then you would know how the nonprofit was being used so that it couldn't be used in any way that's objectionable.
Okay, and just to clarify, so once a year, there basically would be a withdrawal from the nonprofit for the bid for the operating expenses. Is that what you're?
If that is how the bid wants to move forward with it.
Okay.
For example, like on Brady Street, the bid we would do there would be like a donation once a year after the Brady Street Festival to the foundation, and then the foundation would use that for like education for Cass Street School, STEM research, art projects and murals and that sort of thing. So it just depends on, you know, on how the two want to work together. And again, that's kind of the bid determining, you know, how we would move forward, and once a year, if that's how we would, you know, want to keep doing that.
Okay, I'll ask my other question moment. President Rosick, thank you, Steph.
Thank you. I think I could not vote for this at full board, and the reason being is there's, like you said, I don't think you've figured out what the objective is that the bid board wants to support for the nonprofit. when we got the file on Friday, there was no information about this nonprofit private organization. And I just want to be clear that the objective, the second objective to it is to lessen the burden of government in development, redevelopment, maintenance, operation, and promotion of the Village of Shorewood. I have a hard time, what it's written up to be today, and you're asking the board to approve it through the operations plan, which is by statute what we do. That's our oversight, because we tax assess property, business owners, actually property owners that are commercial properties and mixed use properties. And then we give it back. So it is, we assess for it, we tax it as a village, and then we give you that assessment to the bid district. The bid board oversees in a quasi-jurisdictional committee, basically, they oversee the money expenditures. What this does, as it lays out today in the plan, is it moves it to a separate organization that doesn't meet open meeting laws. You can vote by email.
No,
No,
sorry, no, you can't.
okay. None of the board of directors that are identified in this that you're asking us to adopt at full board are business owners. Beyond the farmers market, I apologize, Arthur, because you are not, you're a board member, but not, you don't own the farmers market. You're not a storefront. The biggest concern I have is the funneling of taxpayer money for a bid director who's supposed to be overseen and evaluated by the bid board, but then becomes an employee of a non-public sector, but we may be utilizing the same funding. And that's a possibility. It's just not outlined because it hasn't all been figured out yet. And the contracts is the real problem for me. If, for example, you were to raise some donations from corporations that we don't have in Shorewood, unlike these other places. So downtown Milwaukee, Brady Street, Harbor District, we have Johnson Controls, we have NML. There's a purpose for that, of receiving donations from corporations. We have none in the city, in the Village of Shorewood. But if that was the case and we did get a large donation, this nonprofit board, which the 3 executive committee members can act as the board of directors for contracts, it says they could just give that to, they could hire a marketing director, they could hire a marketing firm, they could hire any contractor they wanted without any public oversight, without any evaluation from the bid board or the Village of Shorewood. That to me takes away every single bit of transparency in government, that there is no oversight. This is a tax to our commercial district. We are taxing them. They did not elect to be taxed. In 1991, or when this bid was created, it was one business owner and the Village of Shorewood who created this bid, not the business owners. And for that reason, I feel very strongly that if we're going to tax the business district and the commercial property owners who pass it down to the business owners, the small business owners, which I'm one of, I really believe that there has to be transparency and government oversight. The Village of Shorewood, by statute, is involved because we collect the taxes, the assessment. And therefore it is a the president of the village appoints the bid members with confirmation by the board. It is a quasi-governmental unit of government, and therefore there should be extreme oversight. It's some, but to hand out contracts without any oversight by 3 non-business owners is unbelievable to me. It is, we go right back to where we were before I got elected and before Trustee Menta got elected, where we had no oversight on contracts. We didn't even have a purchasing policy. And I would hate to see the village go back to that. We've made great progress on this board. We have all of our professional service contracts finally signed. And that's what government does. It's a little slower, it's a little clumsy, but it's for the people.
Thank you.
So I can address most of those concerns. First of all, I don't know where you guys got the idea that we can do voting over email. That's totally illegal, so that won't be happening. I am happy to provide minutes, and I can include more information in the operating plan about how the nonprofit should work for each year moving forward. Minutes, budget, you name it, I can give it to you. You know, as far as me becoming an employee, that's, again, it's not even, I would love to become an employee, some way, shape, or form, whether it be of the bid or the nonprofit, that would be great. But again, hasn't been worked out. It's been discussed. I don't need to be an employee of the nonprofit if that makes everybody uncomfortable. I would love to be an employee only because my auditors say the amount of time and work in full-time hours that I'm doing, it's not recommended that I remain as a contracted position. In which case I would have to, I know, update my bylaws. No problem there. As far as, you know, writing contracts, you know, like I said, we would have to work out like what we plan to do with the nonprofit. We're not going to just start writing contracts willy-nilly. That just can't happen. And again, there's going to be a contract between the nonprofit board and the bid, and, you know, done once a year. This isn't anything that's really new. This is kind of how districts all over the place operate. So I guess whatever other kinds of transparency you need from me, I'm totally willing to work with you guys there.
Trustee Menta.
Yeah, you know, one thing that jumped out on me is Article 6 of the nonprofit incorporation that talks about contracts between corporation and related persons. And specifically transactions or contracts between the corporation and one or more of its directors. And basically it does say that the director would need to recuse themselves during the discussion, disclose that they would be benefiting financially. But it still lays out a pathway for the nonprofit board to contract basically with itself, with one of its members, which I understand for a nonprofit that that's perfectly acceptable. But, you know, that's an issue that we've had before with village committees and have had to make clear to members of village committees, you cannot use your membership on a village committee to gain a contract for yourself. I can't, as an elected official, you know, do something, vote on something, or put myself forward as a contractor so I'm getting paid by the village while I am also a village official. I mean, even if I recused myself, I think that would be a conflict of interest. And also, if you're sitting on a board and you're like considering a contract of like 3 people, and one of those people is the person sitting next to you, even if you recuse yourself, I think there's pressure on the other members of the board to choose you, you know. So
Yeah,
it's
right.
just not I understand that that's probably allowable for there's a lot more freedom from nonprofits because it's not tax money, as President Rosick pointed out. But you know, that kind of a situation, you know, given if we were in a situation where the assessment is being funneled from the bid board entirely to the nonprofit, and then the nonprofit has these much looser rules, that would make me, that contracting issue in particular would make me uncomfortable. The voting by email is also mentioned in here. And again, a nonprofit, you don't need to post notices, you don't need to post minutes, you can vote however you want to vote. That's a nonprofit world. So I think that's where people are uncomfortable. It's like it's a segregated tax. It's an assessment. It's not a general tax, but it is still a tax that the village board has to impose. And yet all those things that go along with tax dollars in terms of transparency and accountability are not there once it gets under the umbrella of the nonprofit. So that I think is the nub of it that has to be worked out.
President Rosick.
I could make a suggestion, maybe to help move it forward and maybe gain my approval, my vote. Maybe if you took out the contracting and you just left it, they are a fundraising entity. I have no problem with, I mean, in your annual report from last year, you do say you partner with Shore, the Shore Foundation. And that to me is a good partnership. And you also include some money for this year's upcoming budget for more partnerships. And I'm just wondering, is that going to be funneled to this nonprofit, or would that stay at the bid? Okay. So that could be one suggestion. I'm really not comfortable with 3 members of an executive committee that are not businesses being able to hand out contracts with the bid board not doing the evaluation of that contract. It's just not comfortable for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
That might be a great way to meet in the middle. The only other thing I had a issue with was term limits. So one member of the bid board termed out, which was Pat Algiris, and she's listed as a board of directors for the nonprofit, basically doing the work of the bid. And I really have a problem with there not being term limits for the nonprofit. So that board of directors position can be lifetime. And again, because this is a quasi-governmental agency that's members are appointed and we tax, I really feel strongly that there are term limits that match ours and that you can't overlap. So if you've termed out of the bid, I don't know why you're doing the bid's work for the bid as a part. It makes me uncomfortable.
So you're saying that nobody who's been on the bid before should be on the nonprofit at all?
If they've termed out, the nonprofit is basically the bid. I mean, they're doing the work of the bid. It's just, so my understanding is the village board, okay, so the nonprofit is overseen by the bid board. The bid board is overseen by the village board. But it's very odd to me that the president of the bid board is on the nonprofit, as well as our trustee liaison. It is, there's no business owners. The layers and the membership and the no term limits and it's an extra layer for 100 businesses. We have I don't know if there's more, Steph, you probably have a better number, but I mean, we're really small. And I get the Harbor District, it's in size small, but the millions of dollars that they have in their budget is way different than the village of Shorewood. And I agree with Trustee Carpenter's question. I worked at DCD in Milwaukee for 15 years, and I very frequently interacted with our 46 bids and the bid director that oversaw it in central office. And I don't remember any of this nonprofit beyond for the purpose that you state in Milwaukee to raise money from big corporations, which we have none of. So for 100 businesses, this is getting really deep. And I'm not sure the real reason, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, it's a lot of layers. We have enough trouble with the 2 layers, let alone creating a 3rd for the same businesses. I don't know. I just don't have my own confidence that is necessary for this small of a district. And
Trustee Carpenter?
It's like 127,000 small.
Okay, thank you, President Rozak. Go ahead, Trustee Bachers. I have one other question, and then I would we are approaching 7:30, so I know that we would like to continue forward to the full board. Go ahead, Trustee Bachers.
Thank you. So I appreciate the discussion, and I appreciate the expertise of our bid director, of the bid board, and all the members that are involved in putting this together. Also want to say that I've heard a lot of rumors flying around this, and a lot of back and forth, including, so one of the things that I would like to clear up here, or also make clear for me, is that there are at least 35 other bids, and many in the local area, many within Milwaukee, that operate in this way. And I've heard the arguments that President Rozak has said, but President Rozak isn't the one constructing this. She's not on the bid. She's also not the exec director of any of these bids. And I can understand that you have concerns, President Rozak, and that others have concerns. And that's great, because that's what healthy debate's about. It's for us to get our ideas and out there, and also realize that none of us are the experts. These are just our ideas and concerns. So I appreciate, again, the fact that this bid has done this hard work and heavy hitting. And I feel for this bid also, because bids in the past in Shorewood, it hasn't been an easy place to be, especially with this board. So if you've got the nails to stick with us, which I hope you all do, that's great. And I don't think that I also question the micromanaging and the expertise that certain members of this village board try to bring and impose on others. This is another situation where, again, it's great to have healthy argument and discussion, but I'm going to go with the folks that are in this, that do this for a living. And I'm happy to see that you guys are moving to a model that seems very sustainable. And so I look forward to updates and to learning more and seeing how this does parallel many of the bids with which I am pretty familiar. But I'm no expert either. Just like President Rozek, I'm not an expert in this. And I really appreciate that you guys have brought this forward. So thank you.
Thank you. I just had two questions, Steph, that I didn't get to ask earlier. Who are you anticipating would want to contribute and contribute in a way that we would need a nonprofit?
Well, so hopefully it would be, you know, when we look to see what kind of projects we would like to work on. I mean, some of them are as simple as, I know there's been a lot of talk about the bid trying to take a more active role in beautification, kind of, you know, the whole snowflakes things that's been talked about for a long time with DPW. So, you know, we don't have a giant budget to buy new beautification types of things. That would be just one example of a way to reach out to, you know, as one project, you know, help us raise some funds to make Shorewood beautiful. I mean, that's just one example. You know, and then it was more like for, you know, further down the road, I know that several bid members have talked about, you know, wanting to, you know, maybe have our own version of a public market. Obviously not the size and scope of what the Third Ward has, but, you know, what we would need would be a nonprofit to be in place for when we're ready to move forward with some kind of cool catalytic projects. So this is just the beginning for us. And I realized that the board just wanted to take the next step in getting us ready to maybe be, you know, play a more active role in some cool projects.
Can you do that now?
And then my only other question is, I know you mentioned that you were just trying to find a couple people to be on the nonprofit. It was like, is there a plan for a process going forward for, you know, I think President Rozek mentioned like term limits, but, you know, are those the individuals that were selected, are they on indefinitely? And is there a plan for how those people moving forward would be selected to be like board of directors, I guess you'd call them?
Yeah, so I'm totally fine with us introducing term limits. That makes sense to me as well. I know that you know, terms in perpetuity make a lot of people uncomfortable. And, you know, quite frankly, I want, you know, the movers and the shakers to be, to have the active role in all of any board, you know what I mean? You don't want someone who's not like really willing to put in the work and that sort of thing. I guess to fill the next couple of seats, I would reach out to the entire bid list and see if there isn't anybody who wants to be involved. I would love to have, you know, some developers, people that own the properties in Shorewood be a part of this, even if they're not a business owner in Shorewood, but property owners would be great to have on, people who are wanting to look forward to the future of Shorewood. And again, I mean, same with the bid board. The bid board, you know, people's terms are going to be up, and you know, we're going to want to put a call out and see if people are interested in participating. And if you all know people who are interested, man, please send them my way. There's nobody banging down the doors for bid positions right now either.
Who does the recruitment? Would that be you, Steph? So in other words, I think Trustee Ursink had mentioned you just picked the 5 because you needed 5. Does that mean that Trustee Ursink and the current 5 are going to be different? Or are they remaining and you're adding to them, and you as the bid director, not the nonprofit, but the bid director, are you utilizing your time to do that recruitment?
Yep, I would utilize my time. I think just because they do work in tandem. Arthur already said that he would step down if, you know, if this is going to cause a conflict of interest. And, you know, it's just, I just wanted to get this sucker going, so.
And I also thought that maybe Stephanie Sherman, as the president of the bid, who oversees the nonprofit, shouldn't be on the nonprofit board of directors. I know you said there's some overlap in other agencies. I'd love to see that. I remember mentioning that to you on Friday, of just how these other places work, but it just doesn't feel right that if an overseeing agency's president, you know, a board president, is on the agency they're overseeing, that also felt like a conflict of interest for me.
Yeah, her term, Stephanie's term ends in May. So if you're telling me I can't have anybody who's been on a bid before to be on this board, then I guess I'm starting over. Because there are usually overlap. That's just usually how it is.
And can I just clarify about term limits? Stephanie is up in May, but because of COVID and some other related, we've this year, which we'll probably encounter next year, it is going to stretch out. So it might not be May that that she is replaced, and until she is replaced, she will serve if she's capable and willing.
Can I speak? I just
I
want to say
move to
thank you
adjourn the
so
meeting,
much.
so I'm going to move to adjourn so we can get to our regular board meeting.
Do we have a second?
And Trustee Carpenter, if there's no second, I would love us to wrap this up. It is an election tomorrow, and I don't know how many of you, a lot of us are working at the polls from 6 a.m. until, including staff.
Going to wrap it up, I just wanted to ask Steph one additional question. So Steph, do you have enough direction from this conversation for moving forward?
But is it scheduled? Is it slated to vote on the agenda? I apologize. I just parliamentary procedure.
For community and business relations?
Yeah.
Correct. It was on there to consider the operating plan, although I'm not sure that's what we discussed. But they're similar to the last item. There would be a recommendation, I believe, to the board out of this committee.
So either there's no recommendation or you take a vote.
Can Steph answer her question?
So in my mind, or in my notes, I have that basically, and I guess I do need a tiny bit of direction. Do you want me to add into the operating plan more specifically how the nonprofit will interact? For example, that we'll do monthly minutes, budget. Let's see. We'll take out any emailing, voting. The contract stuff I know is a big thing. We'll take that out of there because that makes sense to me as well. The only thing, the only thing I'm just struggling with is no overlapping members. So I guess I'd have to talk to Reinhardt Law to figure out how I can keep this sucker moving forward so I can get my operating plan approved for the year, because I don't want to lose a year. Like, that would be really sad, you guys. The bid does a lot of work. I don't want to lose a year of bid work just because there's a nonprofit that is holding things up. That would be bad.
Can I ask a point of order, I guess? The operating plan contains approval of this new entity, correct? So I just want to make sure that's right. So if we approve the operating plan as written, that it goes into effect. So if we have these questions, I think that to answer your question, that would be most beneficial. And you won't lose a year of the bid because we can always do committee and board on the same day if needed, for any reason, or it can just go to full board. And Rebecca, I think you can clarify if when assessments have to go out, you may, the other option is to take out the nonprofit until it's ready and has more detail.
Okay, so it sounds, Steph, like you have enough direction to make some modifications to keep things moving forward.
Yes, and if I can't figure out like kind of this the board member piece, like if there can be no overlapping, which I know other areas do overlapping, but I'll talk to Reinhardt and then, I mean, you're right. If we can't just kind of get this settled by the next meeting, I just want to make sure I can get the operating plan approved just because the work we're doing with the bid is so important, especially during a pandemic. So if everybody's cool with that.
Okay, so I will move to approve I mean, we didn't discuss the operating plan. We really discussed the nonprofit. So I'm not sure what the motion to make is.
I think it has to come back.
I don't feel there's enough specificity having to do with the nonprofit. The nonprofit's in the operating plan, but we don't really know, how it's going to be used or how the bid operations are going to be. So I don't feel like I have enough information to vote on it.
So if we bring it back to with the modifications stuff, if we bring it back to this committee, could it, I know President Rosick, you mentioned it could be voted on at the same time at full board on the 16th. Would that give you enough time to continue moving forward?
I think so. If I have to change up all the board members, then it might not. So I guess I'll have to just kind of work with Reinhardt and see. And like I said, if we can't keep it moving forward because of like kind of that kind of sticking point, because I think everything else seems like pretty easy, then we would just take it off like the operating plan for this year and then just continue to move forward and that sort of thing. And if that makes sense.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So I don't know. I guess so. I will update you like by the time you have to post for the regular village board meeting. I can just kind of update you guys on like whether or not that like it should be listed as nonprofit discussion or just straight up operating plan approval.
You mean with or without the nonprofit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move that we adjourn community business relations.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we have a different, thank you, Steph. I think we have a different link for the full board. President Rosick, do you want to take like a 5-minute break?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. I was looking for my link button. Yeah, what time is it now? I apologize. It doesn't show on my computer.
7:45.
7:45. So let's adjourn now and reconvene in 10 minutes. So 7:55 for village board meeting. Thank you.